do with anything temporary, or at least intended to be so.
How are you, my friend? You ready for the weekend?
Oh, the weekend is so far away at this point.
9 hours, which feels like forever,
We
right?
gotta get through today.
We're all looking for the weekend. He's like, I've worked here long enough.
Yeah, is City Market happening?
I'm in an art show at 317.
Oh,
I
cool.
have like 5 tiny pictures on the wall.
Wow,
My first
congratulations.
showing in like 8 years.
Well, hey, that's something to look forward to.
Yeah. And then I work tomorrow. Weekend
Oh,
is
the
long way
weekend is
away.
long.
To answer
That will
your
be me in
question.
like 2 weeks. I work the weekend and
You need to learn to reassess your weekend, my friend.
It's all exciting stuff. Like, I'm not gonna get arrested.
Ah.
He says right now, knock on wood. So it's all big stuff for me personally. Senate. I work Tuesday through Saturday. And then blessedly, I have Sundays and Mondays off. So we're pretty sacred about
This is the
those.
most of my life I've done so far.
So,
You
unless there's something
crying?
huge.
No, I'm just doing one of these.
Why?
Stanford Martell is
I know.
hell.
I do know. You want to know how crazy I am? Or not crazy?
I mean, I have an idea
Really?
of how crazy you are. Yeah, I figured there's a work someone and then there's an out of work someone.
Wasn't it like a crazy?
I feel like you unwind very easily outside of work.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
I think that like people would think that. And I think the last time I was out, like
I don't even mean that. I mean, just once work's done, you were just like a different person.
chill.
Yeah.
I will say, open invitation after City Market tonight, if you want to come to me and Greater Street Movements. I will be on the dock, dangling my toes, drinking a beer.
Aw. If I lived in the area,
Yeah.
I would be there 100%.
If I had a one-year-old, I'd be there too.
Yeah, we won't have too many more, so I'm gonna take advantage. And it's been like a tradition the last 3 weeks, so.
Last weekend, I had to go up to like Barrington to visit family, and they ended up having lunch like by a pond, and I literally did that. For like 20 minutes old, and everyone's like, "Why are you being so antisocial?" I was like, "I just need it. Like,
I need to be.
this right now."
I have a very social job.
And actually, I feel like when I go home, I like don't want to.
Oh,
As much as I'm studying, like,
Actually, they
I'm
have
going
been
home,
having, yeah, that's been a little weird.
How about you do that?
So, yeah, I mean, it's
Like,
just
so
enough
like,
to get-
wants to talk about politics every day. I'm like,
Beverage.
I mean, I'm not.
And then by then, I'm
talking.
tired
She's
again.
literally joking.
Cats don't want to deal with any humans anyway, so it actually can work.
No, nothing really happened. I just don't really. I went to a vehicle rollover. I talked to Aaron Wilson for an hour and a half. That was fun.
Yeah.
Oops. What do you think?
Here, I am gonna go live now, so I'll let that know.
I'm gonna do a sound check.
Oh, great.
Sound check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Sound check. This is Scott Yates with the Rockford Register Star.
Wait, hold on, I'm not recording.
On.
Make sure I record the
Okay.
Press conference, because it seems like it's getting important.
It is, yeah. So Scott Yates, Rockford Register Star.
Alright, thank you.
That clip is going to.
Yeah. I didn't really, oh, you were recording? Oh, I wasn't recording?
It's the only way I can monitor it, so like my.
Oh, yeah,
Facebook-
to how you're, yeah.
Yeah, Facebook Live doesn't monitor to where I'm reading. Good.
Gotta send that to your mom.
I don't know if he was asking why we weren't out yet. Yeah. My only thing is I was trying a little fatter, so make sure you give room for introvert guy.
Oh, right.
You guys are mandated to.
Yeah, because we don't run captains. We could run captains with like $2,000 an hour or something like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Like, oh, captain, yeah, sign language guy. The signer. This mask is yeah, it's one of these.
You probably want to say that regarding later.
Quick.
But yeah, I got to socially distance from my plants.
I was gonna little speck. You know how it goes. We get a little grimy.
Save it for gardening.
Every little bit counts, I guess.
No one uploaded the video to your story.
Oh, okay.
Is that what you're
I don't
thinking?
know that.
I had a feeling we were gonna ask. When I got in, I noticed it, but I didn't find it.
I'm gonna do it. We just had like an issue with one of the caption things, and I just, a perfectionist, so I was like,
I know we definitely had issues with, some of the videos not connecting like that.
Really? And that's
Kristen, every story she has about 4 or 5 days.
Oh, really?
Nothing she was doing wrong, it's just something wasn't right.
Yeah. The one thing I watched it through. It was funny thing where like it would start like an inquiry loop and then it would like skip 5 seconds, like 1 second jump to the next thing, and then it's like, okay, it's still rendering, so I would look back at this, and it was just a jump. Like it was recorded and now recorded and then recorded
You
again.
know, when you touch the verify, can you show your story?
First time that we switched over, that was great. Hey, I think people watch them, but. That was funny. What's your,
Oh, I never use one.
Oh, you don't use one?
No. I have one, I just barely ever put it up. Hey, you got stuff right? Okay, it's on our trip. Come on.
my brother-in-law.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Sandra Martel. I'm the Public Health Administrator for Winnebago County. And today I'm joined by Chris Manuel, our local business entrepreneur from Prairie Street Brew House. We pulled together the group because we know with the Memorial Day holiday that the schedule will be kind of, Monday will be when people come back into school, but we really needed to get together and really come down about the importance of this Labor Day weekend. And I'm going to give you some preliminary numbers being reported out this morning and our positivity rate. But I'm sure, as you've heard in the local media and national media, that Illinois has been identified at risk for a surge in coronavirus infections, including Winnebago County, related to the Labor Day weekend. And this has traditionally been the last big summer weekend where people get together. And we have been seeing increasing positivity rates and increasing number of cases. Our preliminary count for today is 44 new cases with a positivity rate of 6%. Surging cases puts our largest school districts at risk for all remote learning. Both of our largest districts, Harlem and Rockford Public Schools, are due to open next week. And so we really need to make sure that we understand that if our surging cases mean that we may have to go to all remote in those cases. Surging cases puts our business community at risk for additional mitigation measures, including limiting their capacity, reducing their hours, workforce issues when workers can't report because they have to stay home with their children, and a return to curbside pickup only for food establishments. And surging cases puts individual vulnerables in our community at risk for mortality and death. So do your part. This is my word of caution and warning. Limit your contacts. Avoid large gatherings. Even large family gatherings increase risk. Discourage your college students from returning home for the weekend. Keep them cohorted in their colleges and dorms. Wear your face coverings and masks. Our children who have returned to school are doing a great job. We need to model the same for them. And stay home if you are sick. So as we look at this, one of the areas that we are going to also remind the public about is enforcement of the executive order related to COVID-19. Since the start of Phase 4 of Restore Illinois back in June, there have been over 500 complaints filed through the COVID-19 hotline and website regarding masking by both individuals and business entities. On August 7th, JCAR of the Illinois Constitutional Government adopted rules regarding the control of communicable diseases. It requires individuals over the age of 2 who are able to medically tolerate a face covering that covers their nose and mouth to wear them. It applies to both indoor and outdoor spaces. Any business, service, facility, or organization open to the public or their employees shall require employees, customers, and other individuals to wear face coverings. And it applies to all our schools and daycare facilities, and prohibits gatherings of more than 50 people, or gatherings of 50% or more of a building with a maximum occupancy if 50% of the building is less than 50 people. This is part of the executive order. All local boards of health, health authorities, and officers and certified health departments shall enforce these rules and regulations. So as we began to look at this, you hear August 7th, we've talked about not policing our way out of a pandemic, that we want to practice our way out of the pandemic. But Winnebago County Health Department has formalized its enforcement procedures to prevent the transmission of COVID-19. And this is with the support of what we call our working group, and I'll identify those members, because again, they also recognize the importance of, for their livelihoods, their employees, and our business community, of the importance of us participating in enforcement against complaints. Understand that this applies to all entities, including businesses, retail stores, food establishment, places of worship, schools, healthcare facilities, and universities. After 3 validated violations at the same entity, with education, a notice of noncompliance will be issued. If you're issued a notice of noncompliance and there continues to be noncompliance, then a notice to disperse, meaning a code enforcement officer will enter the premises and ask people to leave, mask up, and make a plan. And again, finally, if all of that fails, there'll be a closure notice. For all notices to disperse, a public health emergency rule enforcement hearing will be conducted by Winnebago County Health Department management level staff who have not been involved in the inspection. Because I've often heard that the same inspector cannot be the same hearing officer. We understand that, and our businesses understand that as well. Hearings will be open to the public to view remotely via the Winnebago County Health Department website. It is our commitment to the public who has made the complaint to see that we are following through on enforcement. Ongoing failure to comply may result in issue of charges by the Winnebago County State's Attorney. And finally, all notices of non-compliance, notices disperse, and the closure orders will be posted on the Winnebago County Health Department website for transparency and communication to the public. Notices will be removed after the entity has demonstrated compliance for 30 days. Understand that these are the drastic measures we're having to take as our positivity rate climbs and we have increasing numbers of cases. Not only do our lives depend on it, but our livelihood. We've worked too hard as a community. Our businesses have suffered through a very difficult time, and we need to continue to do what's right to protect them as well. While most of us do not like to do enforcement or policing our way out of the pandemic, that again, we recognize that repeated violations continue to put our community's lives and livelihoods at risk. So I want to first of all do a shout out to the business community that worked with us for the food work group, which was one of our largest establishments that came together and not only understood the difficulties of what they would have to do to transform their businesses and their industry, but also the process of how do they help us move through this with them. Todd Marshall, who is our lead in environmental health, Lisa Sprecher, Gail Goldman, who's an inspector, Al Castro Giovanni from Giovanni's, Scott Frank from Ciao Bella, Michael Prosser from Hoffman House, Ed McCullough from The Element, Paul Sutton from Abreu, Chris Manuel, who you'll hear from shortly, from Prairie Street Brewhouse, Patrick Alberto from Octane, Rick Schmidt from Backyard Bar and Grill, Randy Baker from Five Forks, Mike Leifheit from Irish Rose, Zach Rotello from Olympic Tavern, Sarah Moore from The Standard, and Michelle LeMay from Chesco's. These individuals have come together to work with us to how to best position our community and our businesses for managing through a pandemic. I've said before, we're coexisting with COVID. We need your support to double down on this. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris Manuel for his comments.
Thank you, Dr. Martell. I want to tell Dr. Martell thank you for her staff. They've been wonderful to work with. The open dialogue that we've had since the spring on the mass effect that has happened to our industry has been great. I know you didn't want to do any of this, but this is where we're at today. So I am Chris Manuel, CEO of Prairie Street Brewing Company, and we're heading into a long weekend, a weekend that we should celebrate. But we want to ask that everyone take the extra precautions this weekend. I know you're going to go away, you're going to do your pool parties, you're going to come eat and drink at our restaurants, and we want to see you there, but we want to ask that you come and practice the social distancing, the mask wearing, and come and enjoy and have your food. We want to see you laugh and smile at your tables. When you walk our halls, we want to see you wearing masks. I thank you for this opportunity, and we hope to see you out this weekend at our bars and establishments and supporting our local employees. Thank you very much.
So closing again on some more positive messaging is a shout out to all of our schools that have started for in-person learning. I want to thanks to all of the janitorial and maintenance staff for all of the extra cleaning. The schools have had to transform into the most clean environments we have seen for years. Thanks to all the administrators who have thoughtfully reimagined curriculums and learning environments. I am constantly amazed at all of the steps and actions that have been taken by this sector of our community work. Thanks to the school nurses who have assessed every child and staff member who is exhibiting even a single sign of COVID-19 and determining the best course of action to prevent transmission in the school environment. And lastly, but not least, thanks to all the teachers who have put on face coverings, face shields, and stepped up in front of the classroom to teach. We're learning more and more about all of our essential workers. You heard from Chris Manuel and the essential workers in the food and hospitality industry and the essential workers in our school. Please do what you can this weekend. Wear your face coverings, maintain your social distancing, wash your hands frequently, sanitize surfaces on a regular basis, and remember to enjoy this time in our region. Keep it local, keep it small, and we can get through this. So thank you. And with that, we'll take any questions.
Dr. Marcel, you're talking about kind of what that will look like for establishments that aren't following the protocol. Can you kind of explain maybe the difference between that notice to disperse and a full closure, and I guess what would potentially have to happen between the two of those for them to
Sure.
happen?
And the question is the difference between a notice to disperse and a notice to close. So obviously, when we come in, if we were to find a crowd large, let's say, use an example, a crowd larger than 50, someone has called in that complaint, we've had it before, they've already been warned, they've been educated, and we go into that facility and we find that they're more than 50. We will do our best in a very peaceful and calm way to start to say, you need to break this up, you need to maybe, break up this room, send people home in the next hour, do what you need to do, or get face coverings on if that's the complaint. If we find that they are unable to do that, and consistently unable to do that, then we would proceed through a notice to close. And it's really an order of closure to protect the public's health. And again, these are drastic moves. And again, we don't have, most of our businesses have really worked hard on this, but we do have some that have continued complaints on that. And for those who are following the rules and having to take all the extra steps, it is an equity issue and concern. That they want to make sure that all of our establishments in Winnebago County are doing the right thing.
And is there going to be a task force that kind of drives around to check these things? Because I know some businesses actually have signs that say no masks required in here. That's not necessarily a restaurant, but I've seen in passing. What happens in that situation, or is there somebody that's kind of patrolling that situation?
First of all, we have code enforcement officers throughout. First of all, they're responding and have been responding throughout this to do the individual complaints. So we've been taking complaints through the COVID hotline, the COVID email address. Individuals have sent photos. If we also do drive-by and we see it, we will also then do what we call, first of all, remember, 3 strikes. We're going to do education. And again, we're going to look for signage, right? I mean, we understand that things happen, one-off, someone comes in, someone sees someone without doing the right thing. But you go in and you see a sign up, no masks, no service, let us know if you need a mask, this is what's required. We will look to see that there are signs that that business is making the attempt to comply. Now, if you have a sign that clearly says no masks required, we know that that's not an intent to comply. And we will move through that process. And we will go in and say, it's time to put your signage up. It's time to provide masks for those who can't, don't have one. It's time to make sure that you're protecting your employees and your livelihood.
If a business were to receive that notice of closure, would it then go, kind of you're mentioning that legal process or that code hearing for them to potentially have the reopening ability, or maybe talk to me, I guess, what would need to happen for them to reopen?
So first of all, there's the notices of non-compliance, the notice to disperse, and then an order of closure. So just so everyone's aware, an order of closure has always existed in the food establishment world. What the goal of that is to get them into compliance as quickly as possible. And again, with the idea being that our goal is not to take out a business for long periods of time where they can't do their work. Oftentimes for food, it might be related to, let's say, a dishwasher not working or breaking or something like that, and they can't until they bring that dishwasher repaired. They either have to, tell us that they're going to use disposable or, get the dishwasher repaired, and then we can bring it back online as quickly as possible. So in that case scenario, obviously we've gotten to a point where we've gone through 3 visits with education. We've gone through 2 additional, and so that order to close now is, I'm going to say number 6, and I have to really question whether or not that business wants to remain open.
And I guess for people to understand, why now? I guess why put these into place, after the time that we've had in phase 4, for people to understand, why is this something that we think is necessary at this point?
So the question of why is this necessary at this point? Well, first of all, at the beginning of August, we knew that the rules were coming out. We continued to monitor. Our complaints have not declined. In fact, they're escalated. And our business community came forward and said, you know, what's being done about the businesses who are not complying? We're all doing the right thing. What are you doing about those who aren't? And I come back to it's an equity issue for them as well. You know, we had the Clean Hands Open Door campaign. We've encouraged people to use that. But again, it seemed like there was no penalty if you were a business that was not complying. And if you were complying, it cost you extra time, money, and effort, right? You have to make sure that you have masks. You have to make sure you have extra hand sanitizer. You may have reduced your capacity and moved furniture out of your venues. You cannot serve as many people. So again, you look back and say, is that fair to those who are complying versus not? And so again, working together, we went through what would be the process that we wanted to use to follow so that we were all on the same page on how that would progress and proceed. Obviously, that is not the favorite part of our jobs. We've said that before. But if that's what we need to do to make sure that our lives and livelihood are protected, we will take those necessary steps.
And I guess anecdotally, can you talk to us about, when you've been called out to businesses and there's been that education process, I mean, most often maybe how are the businesses taking that, or I guess just for people to understand kind of the climate that the health department, I guess, has seen through those visits?
Well, anecdotally, most want to come into compliance. So the question was, how have businesses responded? Again, most respond in a positive way. Oftentimes, it's a matter of, how can they go to the next level? So maybe they don't have enough signage up. Maybe they need to understand as well, about their workers that they think, may not be in service to the public. Now that the face coverings come up, we know that there was more guidance now that came out about, and you heard Chris Manuel speak to it. When you're at your table and eating, you can have your face coverings off, but when the server comes to serve you and it has to come into your space, we want them to be able to serve us and not, flip the table at us. We need to be putting on our face coverings when they approach our table to serve and work with us, because they are essential workers and we need to protect them.
Chris, I have one question for you. I guess, as an owner of establishment, as large as yours, and, if you were to have, something, people not following the rules and having to shut down, obviously that hurts your livelihood, but I guess more importantly, your employees and your workers, and, you've had some of that, throughout this season so far, so if you can kind of talk to us about what that's like for an owner to have to, do things like that with such a large staff.
Yeah, going into spring was unprecedented events. We had a staff of over 100 going into summer, and we had to lay almost everyone off in the beginning, and to look at the single mothers, the single fathers, and they have families at home. This is their livelihood. Luckily, the government came in and helped a little bit with everyone. This going into fall is really serious. Right now, I want everyone to think about, the workers that we have, that others have. Going into this fall, it's not looking, if we can stay with the numbers low, hopefully we can keep everyone working. But if we go up, it's going to affect the most vulnerable in our community. And, I'd like to thank my staff. They've done a great job this year, helping everyone out. They're doing a great job with our patrons right now with the increased protocols. And for the most part, everyone's working along and learning how to adjust and enjoy their time out. And, we're glad to see that. For others, they still have an issue with it, but, our staff's handling it very well. For other restaurateurs, people who own retail establishments, it's been a very difficult year. And going into winter, it's not looking any simpler. So I'm here asking that the public, adhere to these guidelines and rules, because it is going to affect a large population if we do have to go back. And I don't want to see that. I don't want to see my employees get laid off again. I don't want to see my employees' kids hurt because of this again. And we're going into school next week. And part of this is ramping up is knowing that school is starting. You have sports, declining with their new regulations, but there's still practices and whatnot. College kids are off to school. Some are going to be coming back home. We know that the numbers are high there as well. So we're reminding everyone going into this holiday weekend to be careful, because it's going to affect everyone if we don't adhere to some of these rules this weekend.
Chris, so Dr. Martell mentioned this kind of task force that you and other local restaurant and business owners put together. Have you guys, along with the health department, kind of discussed the procedures you can put in place for winter where maybe outside seating may not be possible, or you might have to modify outside seating, still get as close to that 50-person capacity that you possibly could?
We haven't got there. Everything is pretty fluid. We've been meeting weekly in the beginning, bi-weekly, now maybe monthly now. With how fluid this pandemic is, I'm sure we'll meet again and talk about fall and winter, but right now we have not.
So you're kind of you go with the recommendations that the state put out and go with from there pretty much?
Yeah, in the beginning for a long time, it seemed to be changing on a daily, if not weekly basis. Going into fall, I think we're going to see more of the same. Hopefully we can keep the numbers down and stay open this time, but we'll be working with the health department, and I'm sure they will be working with us to make it work for everyone.
Dr. Martell, we've been talking a lot about, retail stores, restaurants, things like that, but you said, schools are also a part of this. What will it look like if a school, does have to, do an order to closure? I know they all are prepared to go fully remote. A lot of them are prepared to go fully remote, and I know you're pretty involved in helping the schools reopen, but can you just, how does that play into this?
The question is, would the schools be subject, and how would that play out for their orders as well? So again, first of all of the schools in Winnebago County work together, and we put out our school guidance and said we are masking in Winnebago County. So that should not be an issue. Now, crowd size and gathering of 50, I've always gotten that question. There are always more than 50 in a school to begin with. Yes, we know that. That's not what this is talking about. So you've heard from us multiple times about how we're cohorting the elementary grades. We've talked about class change periods and all the modifications that have gone into the schools. I've gone into several of them, walked through them, every other locker. For those of us who remember the days where we'd hang out at our locker during class change period and check in with our friends who weren't in our classes, yeah, that's not happening this year. They have moved vending machines throughout so that it's strategically placed with hand sanitizer next to it. So the idea being to quickly move people to where they need to go. And when you start to look at the amount of modification, and I said it's a very humbling experience to see what a kindergarten classroom looks like now with plexiglass between the students at their tables. And, the work, and I truly mean this janitorial staffs that had the amount of cleaning they have to do throughout the day. And they've modified little cup holders on the chairs so that the kids are not having to touch other kids. The teachers are putting what we call the manipulatives, things that they normally would have. They would share in a collaborative classroom at their tables so that they are going to be ready to learn. And again, we do not expect that schools will be in that problematic area. They have already signed on to do that. And again, they have a very high calling to protect the health and safety of not only really our most vulnerable asset in our community, children, right? And we know that we need to make sure that we've talked about the importance of in-person education for many of them. I'm hoping they'll be our next public health and our next reporters and our next restaurant establishment, and our entrepreneurs in our community. But we need to get them through, and then we need to be protecting those who care for them, the teachers, the whole school staff. I can't even shout out enough. It's amazing the amount of work that has gone into that. So I do not expect to have to do that. I've also had the question, about, again, this kind of concept about disrupting. Again, education, right? What's going on that they can't follow it? Like, what's happening? Initially in all of this, we had a hard time getting all the supplies needed, whether it was PPE, whether it was, the face coverings, whether it was hand sanitizer, wipes. We hear on-off oftentimes from employees. We've talked about this before. And how can we work with that employer, that entity, to make it as safe as possible in the guidelines? So the idea is to bring people into compliance. Police, we're not going to punish our way out of this pandemic. We really need people to understand that we really hold the key to this. We are the humans that are transmitting the disease, and we are the ones that can help prevent it as well.
Now, Dr. Martell, you've repeatedly praised the janitorial, and maintenance departments of schools. But in your tour of schools, have you noticed any general room for improvement that seems to be universal across the board?
So the question is, have I seen any universal need for improvement? I will tell you that the janitorial staff has identified their areas for improvement, which is I know this will be hard. Many of the classroom teachers are used to having lots of things in their classroom to make it more comfy and home-like, whether it's rugs or, it might be what we would call stuffed animals, comfort items, lots of different kinds of things that help entice children and keep them occupied. Those are having to go, and I have to say the janitorial staff is kind of thankful, and teachers are probably gonna get at me at this one, because they don't have to clean around all that, right? I mean, this way they can quickly go in and make sure that they've cleaned and sanitized a classroom in addition to all the different environmental controls that they've put in. But they have done that on their own and identified. They have identified where they think they need to put plexiglass up, whether it's as they come into the thing, or where as a parent you can drop off a lunch if your child forgets it. Life goes on, as we know that. They still forget their lunches, or they need something. And so again, I think they've gone through that. And they've asked us if they need guidance, if they'll say, well, how many, is this close enough for a locker? And we'll take a look and see which hallways that they're in. We ask about flow. And so, again, it's a team effort and approach. We are definitely in an evolving situation. We have stepped out where very few have stepped out. Many of our school districts in Illinois are not opening to in-person, and ours really made a commitment to work toward that. So we are also going through this, and if we find an area where they think and they have a question, we work with them, and then we'll do a walkthrough with them. All right, well, thank you all. Thank you for getting the word out, and I do thank you for all our laborers and workers. We appreciate everything that you have done and all that you have continued to do to get us through this pandemic. Thank you.